Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Big Idea. The U.S. mission to ASEAN started this show because we know there are many Southeast Asian leaders who have big ideas. And we want to talk to the people who have turned those big ideas into a reality. I have such a special guest for you today. I am so excited to talk to Rafid Shidqi, who specializes in marine life, and in particular right now on sharks. So let's bring him in now. Rafid.
Hi.
Hello, Rafid. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to talk to you today. So many people I've been talking to said, oh, we're going to talk about sharks. How exciting. So
yeah, I got some people connected me in LinkedIn and just to say hi, and he's actually affiliated with YSEALI, so yeah, it's been really cool.
Well, the first question I want to ask you is about your interest in marine life and sharks. A lot of people were telling me over the past few days that their children were really interested in sharks. So were you interested in marine life as a child, or is that an interest that came later?
Yeah, it was actually kind of a funny story. So my destiny going into marine science program was kind of like an accident, because you know, marine science back when I was very little is not something that is familiar to me. So, you know, being a civil servant, working as a doctor or nurses are kind of like a traditional job pathway in my family. And after I graduated from high school, actually I applied for medical school in several universities in Indonesia, but I got rejected 5 times. And at the time, like, you know, I decided to choose some program that seems to be less competitive than medical school, and it brought me to marine science program. And that, you know, eventually I got in, and it comes to definitely the later stage of my life. But I think since I was very little, I eventually like really interested with you know, animals, and biology was my favorite subject when I was in school. And ever since I was very little, my father usually brought me like small figures of animals, like tigers and giraffes and, you know, fish. And we usually spend weekends finding for fish on the lake nearby my home. And yeah, I think that, you know, it's not kind of like an accident at all. I've been developing some kind of interest towards biology and, you know, living beings since I was very little.
Well, the community of marine scientists, we're very lucky to get you, to grab you, because we need good people working in this field. So yeah. I want to ask you a question about sharks that, right at the top, that I'm sure a lot of our audience are interested in. So a lot of people, when they hear about sharks, they think about sharks, they will think one of two things. They think of sharks as a source of food, or they think of sharks as something quite scary. They've seen images of the teeth and the blood, and they've heard horrible stories about people being bitten by sharks. So given that, why should people care about sharks? What is the beauty of sharks that you see, and why should we want sharks to remain in existence?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's like, you know, it's not only like general people out there, even my mom, like when she knows that I'm gonna work on research about sharks, she's always like terrified, you know, like, oh, you're gonna get bitten or anything like that. Like nothing positive comes about when I tell people, even my family members, about, you know, I'm doing research about sharks. And that's kind of a very wrong idea, because sharks in general, they're not kind of aggressive animals that likes to bite humans or attack humans or something like that. They're just, you know, like fishes, like the fish that lives in the oceans. And usually when you swim with when you go into the oceans, and actually when sharks are around you, they will the first thing that they do is to actually run away because they don't really, that brave to when they sense human, which is who are very strange being that comes to the water. And yeah, it's eventually, like when you kind of provoke sharks, you when they're shark around, and then you kind of like going closer and then try to touch them, and then they
apologize to the audience. We're having a technical issue. Hopefully Rafid comes back quickly. Rafid warned me that he's on an island today and it's raining very heavily, but hopefully we'll get him back very soon. Well, while we're working on getting our feedback, I just want to say to the audience, this is your opportunity to ask questions about sharks or manta rays or marine life to a real expert here. So please think about questions and you can add them in the comments. And then as soon as Rafid gets back, we'll continue the conversation. So we'll just pause for a moment.
Hey.
All right, Rafid is back. I told our audience that that we might have some tech issues today, but you're back.
Yeah.
You're back, and you were telling us about sharks and why they are not as universally dangerous as people believe.
Yeah, I think that I have to continue on the point that right now 100 millions of sharks were killed each year because of in the past there was like rising demands of shark fin soup, particularly for Chinese medicine and other types of unproven medical properties that believed to be existed in shark fins, and that has drive more than 30% of sharks were threatened with extinction. So 30% of them now categorized as endangered, at least by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. It's, over the past decade, shark has been experiencing a steep decline in their populations because of an extensive fishing pressures and, increasing demands from as the food supplies, and also some of coastal communities also depending on shark as the protein sources. And if we, there has been many NGOs working towards solving that issue. And if we are not working together, like on the large scale and creating a real impact on protecting sharks could potentially extinct in the next couple of years. So it's really an alarming and really important to actually protect sharks right now before they actually disappear from the ocean forever.
Did I hear you correctly? The next couple years, the situation is that dire?
Not maybe not a couple of years, but like some sharks has experiencing more than 90% of decline. Wow. So we don't really know like when the sharks will go extinct, but I think if we don't act now, they will disappear on the oceans forever.
And you said there are lots of different types of sharks. So some are more at risk than others. It makes sense.
Yeah,
exactly. I was reading on your website, Thresher Shark Indonesia, which I recommend everyone check out. And there it talks about the International Convention in Endangered Species with Fauna and Flora. I hope I got that title right. But could you tell the audience about what this convention is and what you hope it will achieve?
Yeah, so there are so many approaches that has been done by various organizations from local, national, and international. start from, cutting down the chain of the demand of shark fin soup, and also, reducing the fishing pressures from the, local fishing activities and stuff like that. And from the international point of view, there is one body named Convention of International of Threatened and Endangered Fauna and Flora. It's like CITES, what we call as CITES. They are the ones that actually regulate the international exports of protected and endangered flora and fauna around the world. And Thresher shark recently has been included in the CITES listing, meaning that if a country wanted to export shark to international market, they have to be carefully regulated. It has to be from sustainable sources. It's not coming from a bycatch, or it's not coming from any other practices that might threatening the existence of the populations itself. So CITES is regulating this very closely to make sure that the thresher sharks, and also they provide quota. So the amount of shark exploited is not going to be exceeding the kind of what we call as the carrying capacity of the population. So we leave some of them to be able to repopulate in the future through this kind of regulations.
Well, I mean, the US government cares about endangered species. We support a lot of groups, and we're certainly excited about your group, Thresher Shark Indonesia. And so we got a question from Rahando. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Hi, Rafid. Why do people hunt this particular shark, the thresher shark? Is there a specific reason?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So there's two different issues why thresher sharks were getting hunted. The first one is they become the victim of bycatch. So they're accidentally caught by industrial fisheries in tuna industries more specifically. And while the case that I'm working here in Alor, I'm working with coastal communities that are depending on the thresher shark for more than 50 years because they value the meat as one of the important protein sources to them. And in the past, before when the demand of the shark fin soup still high, people also depending on the fins as a source of income. So, and yeah, they've been developing a very specific skill to catch only thresher shark because they have a long tail, and they develop specific fishing gear that will when the shark, because the sharks hunt with tail, right? So when the shark uses the tail to slap the fishing gear, it will eventually get stuck, and the fisherman will be able to pull it out from the oceans. So it's the skill that they have been practicing for more than 50 years, and it's actually very easy to catch thresher sharks and consume them locally.
I see. And it certainly would be hard to convince someone whose livelihood is dependent on catching the thresher shark to stop catching that particular species and to diversify. So have you noticed an impact from your group? And if you have, why do you think you've been successful?
Yeah, I think that the thresher shark species, even if like they are endangered, they're still being overlooked. So in the terms of science, on the ecological side, and also in the effort themselves and how to protect specifically the species is still very minimum here in Indonesia. And my project is really working toward a small scale solutions, which is we're trying to find the best solutions how people who are depending on the species as livelihoods could shift toward other incomes, which potentially more sustainable. And before we start, before we come to the area, we ask like the local government and then the people there asking like, oh, have you seen this type of shark that has a very long tail? None of them actually aware, like, oh, we haven't seen them before. And and then we keep searching because we receive information there are so many pregnant sharks getting caught in the area, and we would like to find out where they catch them. And eventually we got to 2 villages that have been hunting Thresher sharks. And when we arrived there, they actually started to land some sharks after they went from fishing. And we did the engagement with the shark fishermen, and then with the local village leaders, with the youth, and also with the local government. More and more people right now started to realize that the Thresher shark population in Alor could be an important asset for the local economy, not from fisheries but from other things. And especially when we see the comparison of this potential of shark as the economic revenues, is we can see from our Southeast Asian neighbor, from the Philippines. They have one site with specific Thresher shark tourism that can generate over 12 million US dollars per year, and it has helped the local communities to gain some good economic revenues, and then they could also supporting the conservation efforts there in the Philippines. And that's the idea that we'd like to propose to the local government and also the local communities there. Look, if you can protect Thresher sharks here, there's a long-term benefit that you could get, especially when you protect them as a local asset that from tourism, that could help the community and also could help the economic development in the future.
You said 3 things that really moved me. One, people like to look at animals. So yes, there are people who like to eat animals, true, but there are a lot of people who like to just look at animals, and there's a lot of tourism dollars to be made. The second thing is, if you're a fisherman and you want your granddaughters or grandsons to be able to engage in the fishing industry, you have to fish in a sustainable way so that the animals survive in the long term. And then finally, and this is a really good tip for leaders in general, if you have a cause and you want to be effective with that cause, you have to develop what we call buy-in, or you have to work with the local government, as you said. You have to meet with the villagers, you have to talk to people, you have to have that interaction. You're not going to just force people to believe in your cause. You have to have dialogue. And clearly you did, and it's having an impact on the community.
Yeah, that's true. I think that when people say that working in marine biology is to only care about the animals, that's not true. So when you want to work in marine biology and eventually want to achieve the conservation outcomes, the things that you do most is to actually talk to people, engage them, trying to make them understand about the value of protecting the animals, and then trying to change the behavior, trying to make them adopt the new values that we bring from the outside, and hopefully they could practice it as a new way of life, and then practice it for the longer term. And yeah, I think that engaging the local communities and the younger generations also very important. And we have seen the very inspiring drive that we do here, that we train 20 young indigenous leaders of Alor, so they're below 25 years old, and we provide them with knowledge about marine conservation, leadership, and communications. And right now they have been the leaders in their own villages. They started making projects focusing on marine conservation. They started to engage more younger communities to actively contribute towards the cause. And yeah, it's been very a rewarding experience for us while working here with the people.
That's great. By the way, we got a comment from Tanya. Hi, Rafid. Hello from Bali. So I don't know if you know this, Tanya, but I'm sure you know a lot of people. And some of the people are part of the YSEALI network. It's our Young Southeast Asian Leadership Initiative. And we have a network. And we highly suggest anyone who's listening to this program who's between the ages of 18 to 35 to sign up for our network. I'm just curious, how did you hear about YSEALI? How did you get
YSEALI?
Yeah.
I think I've heard it when I was still in my undergrad. And the funny experience about YSEALI is that actually I applied YSEALI for 8 times before actually getting accepted to the YSEALI Academic Fellow. So yeah, I applied and I did not successful, and then I applied the next year, did not successful, and yeah, I think YSEALI is such a flagship program that a lot of people actually talked about. And uh, my first idea about YSEALI, because people in my circle in marine conservation uh, has been accepted in various YSEALI programs, from regional workshops and also the YSEALI academic fellows. So I think it was kind of like, very interesting, and I would like to have that kind of experience as well. That's the reason why I applied for YSEALI. And it's not kind of easy because it's very competitive. Like, you have to compete with thousands of young Indonesians to only earn like 4 spots in the YSEALI academic program. So I'm very grateful to being part of the network.
Yeah, very proud of you.
Yeah.
And you're saying something that I say, every successful leader has stories of failure and being rejected. Yeah. And a successful leader doesn't give up. A successful leader says, I still have contributions to make. I'm not going to let this stop me, and keeps going. And that's my tip for anyone. I share that with anyone who has a setback. It's just a setback. It's not, you have to think long term. Every successful leader has had, bad days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a positive reinforcement that I keep telling myself as well. Whenever I have a bad experience in the field, I keep reminding myself it's just a bad day, not a bad life. There's always a chance that you can make it better tomorrow. So yeah, being resilient and focus and believe that your work could bring some positive impacts that actually helps you to keep fighting for what you think is important.
You ended up, I'm from California. That's why I've got the Golden Gate Bridge behind me. So I have to ask you, you ended up, or you still are, you're attending the University of California, Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
How did you end up at UCSC?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So actually, YSEALI, after I attended YSEALI, I've witnessed, the experience and interact with U.S. students, U.S. professors, and I like the way how the curriculum crafted to ignite us to, draw more questions and being curious. And the thing that I always remember from my experience for YSEALI is to never hate the problem, because a lot of times, like, we try to solve a problem that seems to be very wicked and it's really hard to solve. But my mentor back then, Lance from East West Center, said that do not hate the problem, try to like the problem, and develop some questions around them that eventually it will lead you towards some answers. And from that experience, only I think 5 weeks, I got to spend 2 weeks in California and witness San Francisco, how cool the place is, and also I visited Yosemite and see so many initiatives related to ocean to environmental conservation, and how it's very multi-sectoral. So government, universities, and local people as well being engaged and work together for environmental conservation. That really inspired me to study further in California. And I've been thinking to continue my study, my master's, but California is always on my top list. So I want to study in the US. California should be the top list. And I applied to several universities in California, University of California, San Diego, University of California, Santa Cruz, and also California State University. And eventually, UCSC is one of the definite choice for me, because it's a very interdisciplinary program, or what the program that I call is the coastal science and policy. So it's merged between natural sciences, social sciences, political science, and a little bit of economics. And I just realized that my job is really interdisciplinary. I cannot only have one specific field, but I have to understand many different aspects if I would like to be successful in my field. So yeah, and it's been a great experience, especially Santa Cruz is very beautiful, Pacific Ocean, redwood forest. It's the perfect combinations of being in the environmental conservation program.
Well, like all Americans, every American, no matter what state he or she is from, argues that his or her state is the best. So I'm from California. I'm a graduate of the University of California system. So of course, I think you made the right choice. But I have lots more questions to ask you, but I'm neglecting my audience, and we have received several questions with the same topic. And it has to do with diving. There are a lot of people who would like to go diving in a location that protects sharks, where it's safe to dive with sharks. What would you recommend to these potential tourists?
Wow, that's definitely a hard question. You know, I think especially if you talk about Indonesia, how big our country are from the west to the north to the south, and each diving spot have different attractions. So if I would say like Alor and Raja Ampat, because I've been working here for some years, definitely my choices, because in Alor, and especially in Alor, I can say that there's different ranges of attractions that you can see here. If you like small stuff like the nudibranch and small orangutan crab or any other types of very bizarre and unique macro animals, you can dive here in Alor. And also, if you want to dive with sharks, there's some sites that you can dive with Thresher sharks, hammerhead, manta ray, and so many dolphins, whales. Definitely you can find while you're diving in Alor. And in Raja Ampat, it's more like so many reefs, areas, and big fishes, like big reef fishes and beautiful corals. Raja Ampat is the place. So it really depends on what the things that you would like to see. And the list is endless. Like if you see Kalimantan, they have different sites, that different attractions in Sulawesi as well, in Aceh, and so many places to dive. But if you ask me specifically, I would like to recommend you to come to Alor and dive with treasures, hammerheads, and beautiful corals as well. And the people here are also very friendly. So that's my favorite diving spots so far.
Well, now I'm going to have to visit. So I want to ask you, some fun questions, because you're my shark specialist. And I was looking up very unusual names for sharks from Indonesia. And I just want to know if you have any thoughts about some of these sharks. So there's a shark I'd love to see called the silky shark. Have you ever seen this shark? What makes it silky? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it while diving, but sadly, I got to know silky sharks because they are one of the most landed shark in Indonesian fisheries. So silky and then treasures are two of the most endangered sharks here in Indo. And the reason why they call silky is that because they have skin that is really smooth, like very shiny, and very kind of streamlined body shape, very beautiful animals. And they're just as fascinating like treasure sharks. They have a very beautiful eyes as well. And it's really hard to describe them. You have to see them swimming in front of you to know how it feels.
Sounds great. How about the long comb sawfish?
What's that? I haven't heard.
Sawfish. I'm not expecting you to know every shark in Indonesia. That was an interesting name. I also saw the brown banded bamboo. Now that was a beautiful shark. I didn't know that sharks come in brown, but I guess they come in all colors. I started looking at these sharks online. There's such variety in sharks. I had no idea.
Yeah. There. If you learn about the shark's biology, they are the species that have one of the most advanced evolutionary kind of features. So they have different shapes, different colors, different features. So they're definitely fascinating to study, and it's giving us more reasons to actually protect them in their existence in the oceans.
And the last one that I'll mention that I just was fascinated with, I saw this YouTube video called The Walking Shark. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
And it looks
like
it really does look
like yeah. So they have developed the pectoral fin. So instead of swimming, they actually developed that as the kind of walking, because they're bottom dwelling animals. They like to hunt in the sand. So and they're kind of like a night hunter as well. So they use the slowly moving
all right, audience.
Raja Ampat.
Oh, you went out for a moment. You came back quickly.
Yeah. So the walking shark, you can find it in Raja Ampat during the night, and they have very unique feature because their fins, they develop it for walking to not, yeah, it's very cool and cute sharks as well.
Now you were studying mobula and the manta rays for a while, and then you kind of switched to sharks. How did that happen?
Well, it's kind of like a long story that might be require more minutes. But in short, like previously, like working with manta ray and sharks are my biggest passions in marine conservations, because they're such a beautiful animals. They're worth protecting for. And well, from manta ray, I work with Manta Trust, an international organization based in the UK. I got to work with them almost 3 years in Raja Ampat. And then I eventually started to develop my own project focusing on Thresher. I realized that, there's so many things to know about them. And right now, there's still so few people who actually working specifically towards their protections. And, I'm doing my individual part to, start working for them and bringing up more discussion about treasure sharks. And hopefully, like, the local government, provincial and national government would like to do more on the regulation side, so protecting them nationally and making them survive for the years to come.
Well, there are so many leaders popping up, learning about how important this is, becoming concerned. The word is getting out that a lot of species are in danger, and that we do have to explore how we're fishing in sustainable ways, how we're treating our environment, climate change, all these various topics, and how they affect both our existence as humans, but also the existence of animals. So it's exciting to see so many leaders such as yourself starting organizations like this one. I know you co-founded this organization. It wasn't just you, but when people get together and they say this cause is important, they really can have an impact as you're having. And we're definitely going to put your information in the description of the video. So if people want to work with your organization, or they want to reach out and hear more tips from you about how to get involved in protecting animal life and marine life, the information will be there. So I just want to ask you a few more fun questions here at the end. I want to know if you have seen the following US movies. So have you seen Jaws? Have you ever seen the movie Jaws, the classic movie, US movie called Jaws?
No, I don't think so. What is it?
You have some streaming to do. How about how about Deep Blue Sea?
Oh yeah, I've watched that one.
Seen that one. Now, as a lover of sharks and marine life,
right?
Good movie or not good movie? Deep Blue Sea.
The Jaws movie, JAWS?
It's called Deep Blue Sea. What movie are you talking about? What recommend a movie for us?
Yeah, I think that, movies like Jaws and Deep Blue Sea, I don't know, I kind of like a contradicting opinion about it, because Jaws was the initial movie that sparked some negative stigma about sharks, and the Deep Blue Sea as well. And you know, as a marine science practitioner, it's kind of like an entertainment to watch that. But for a general people, if you want to learn about sharks, I would not recommend to watch Jaws or Deep Blue Sea, because that in one way might make you terrified. There's many documentaries to learn about sharks, and documentaries. I think the series that I'd like to recommend.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. Some of the classic U.S. films and the most watched films, they're fun and they're entertaining, but they have led to this impression of sharks, which, as we've discussed, is not always accurate. Speaking of a documentary like film, have you ever seen Sharknado?
Yeah.
Okay. So that clearly is, everyone listening to this program, please don't watch Sharknado if you want to watch a factual documentary about sharks. But if you want to have a silly good time, then maybe check that one out. But the basic thing that I want people to come away from this is there's a lot of information to be learned about sharks. There are documentaries, there are groups such as yours, there's lots of scientific material out there. So don't just limit yourself to these silly movies. Really investigate. These are beautiful creatures. I was looking at some videos before we chatted. Gorgeous creatures, and really worth learning more about them. So we're just about the end of our interview, and I'd like to ask you, you've said a lot of things to the audience, shared lots of information about sharks. Is there one more thing that you would like to tell our audience about sharks that perhaps they don't know?
I think that, there's so many, such a hard questions actually. There's so many interesting facts about sharks. But for the sharks actually has a behavior, what we call as a fidelity behavior. So if they give birth towards specific habitat, towards specific locations, they will grow around the area, the coastal waters, until they big enough, and then they will travel further away for oceanic species. And eventually, when they want to give birth or mate, they will go back to that same place on the first place of they born. So it's one interesting fact about sharks that I know. So yeah, it's they travel far, but they never forget where the home is. They always come back to the first place they were born. So I think that's one of the interesting facts that I got to tell people.
What a wonderful nugget. Well, we'll have to end the interview there. Unfortunately, I went over 30 minutes. I could talk to you for another hour. It's so interesting. I really appreciate it. And as a representative of the US government, I'm really so excited when I get to talk to leaders such as yourself and know that we have supported people like you with great causes who really care about the future of Southeast Asia. So thank you so much for joining the show today.
You.
And for everyone, please, if you have more questions for Rafid, we ran out of time, but he look up Thresher Shark Indonesia. Share your questions. Rafid would be happy to respond, I'm sure. Everyone, please, stay in touch, and we look forward to the next conversation. Thank you again, Rafid.
And I have to add a little bit. We have 2 documentaries about our project. It's both on YouTube, so you just type Thresher Shark Indonesia, so it will give you 2 documentaries. There are older documentaries as well, and if you'd like to know about our project, you can definitely watch and follow our social media. And thanks very much, Jason, for this incredible opportunity to share.
Great. Thanks so much. Goodbye, audience.